BasuandGodin Notebook. BasuandGodin Notebook. BasuandGodin Notebook. BasuandGodin Notebook. BasuandGodin Notebook. BasuandGodin Notebook. They're heading for Nashville, so I'm going to say, hey, y'all. Welcome to the Basu and Godin Notebook. I'm Marc-Antoine Godin. On Friday, March 27th, I'm with Arpin Basu, who's got already a look of disdain on his face. Arpin, how are you today?
I just want everyone to know that your cold opens are not approved by me. I don't get to vet them. You don't check with me. You just come out with a y'all, and that's I'm removing my ownership of that cold open. That's only going to you.
Okay.
That's Marc-Antoine's cold open. I have nothing to do with that.
No. You'll have plenty to do with whatever follows, though. Well, welcome to the show, everybody. Big week. I feel like this
another big week.
I feel like this week was 2 weeks long. It was exhausting. There was a lot of drama around the team, which we'll get at some point. So I guess
drama.
Oh yeah,
a lot of manufactured, unnecessary drama. Yes,
own goal drama,
self-inflicted drama. Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, I think even though the Canadiens have done well at home, I feel this is one of those days, one of those instances in the season where it's probably a good thing that they're going on the road. Just that they're going to just focus on hockey and get settled down a little bit. I feel like tension has gone up a little bit. Maybe that it's got to do with the standings. Maybe it's got to do with the fact that we sense a head coach that's a little bit more on the edge these days. But Arpin, I want to start with yesterday morning. Prior to the game against the Columbus Blue Jackets, Marty had a very interesting avail when his new buzzword was stamina, and not stamina in terms of physical stamina, but more mental stamina. Is it basically a cute way of saying consistency?
Yeah, it is. It's also a way of using a whole bunch of other buzzwords. Can they maintain this standard? Their standard has reached a point where he'd like it to stay there. And that's what he means by stamina. So when he says, can we raise the standard, and the players decide the standard, and it's my job to hold them to it. And all the times he talks about the standard, him saying stamina means that the standard has reached a place that he's pretty happy with. And so now can we keep it there? And, by and large, he's right. He was using some very sort of definitive ways of talking about how his team's playing, how, if they continue playing this way, then we're going to be fine, and we're going to, that they've reached more or less the best version of themselves, or at least the best version of themselves that they've seen this season. Really, really in a good place in terms of how the coach views how his team is playing.
And the players are happy too.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. That was before the Columbus game. I don't know if the players were thrilled about how they played in the Columbus game, but still, they won that game. Marty himself was asked a question about their 5-on-5 play, like a really innocent question, like, teams that play well in 5-on-5 usually do well in the playoffs. Like, how are you liking your team at 5-on-5? I was like, well, the first period, it wasn't very good. And he's not wrong. You want to know an incredible coincidence? So when they hit the first TV timeout and I looked up at the shot clock, it was 8-1 Columbus. I was like, that seems familiar. So I go back to the play-by-play of the Carolina game, and sure enough, at the first TV timeout against Carolina, shots on goal, 8-1. The only difference is the Canadiens were up 1-0. The Canadiens were down 1-0 in that game against Carolina, and they were up 1-0 in this game. So
the first periods between those two games,
they were on the verge of it. Yeah,
the first periods of those two games were eerily similar, both in the way that the opponent attacked and the way that the Canadiens seemed to be paralyzed, couldn't complete a pass, were not connected, committing turnovers, bad puck management. Some things that it's funny because it used to be for a good chunk of the season that the Canadians would have a strong first, stumble in the second period, and rearrange things for the third. But now, lately, they've been having bad first periods, and they correct themselves during the first intermission, and they come back in the second, and all of a sudden, the bench is not as far as it used to be. And
Okay, can I step in for a second there? I'm sorry,
sure,
but this is a
no,
remarkable thing. So we always make fun of the fact that, hey, oftentimes when we're watching the game together at the Bell Center and they're playing poorly in the second period, I was like, well, Marc-Antoine, I'm not sure if you're aware, but the bench is further in the second period. And so this is this running gag that Marc-Antoine have had all season. The second period against Carolina, the factor that Juraj Slafkovsky mentioned in how they turned the way they were playing around against Carolina is that in the second period, on numerous occasions, they outchanged the Hurricanes. He said far bench, and when he said far bench, I was like, oh, here we go. Here comes the far bench thing. But no, he said far bench, and on several shifts, we outchanged them, and we caught them tired. And that's what turned the tide, and that's what gave us the momentum. Those were key moments in the game. And I was like, well, this is refreshing. This is an instance where the far bench, actually the other team also had a far bench. Like, this is the one time where the far
there's
bench
always
didn't
a team.
only negatively affect the Canadians. Like, I know, but whenever they use that as an excuse, you're like, both teams have far benches in the second period. How are you using this as an excuse? But now they've actually, Tuesday was the night where they actually, instead of having the other team take advantage of them, they took advantage of the other team and the far bench.
Yeah, that's it. Because in every game, when a team struggles because of the far bench, there's another that benefits from it.
It's the equivalent is saying, "Oh, we had a bad game because the ice was bad." Like, the ice is bad for both teams. Like, you can't use that as an excuse. So
no. But I mean,
that was a milestone moment for the Canadians where one of their players credited the distance to the bench in the second period as a reason why they were able to turn around and win the game.
Yeah. They did turn around to a certain extent. I mean, it was very conservative hockey in the second period. I mean, there was. Oh, yeah. But even against Columbus, second period against Columbus it looked as though, sometimes how we say that in the first periods of a game, the two teams are studying each other like boxers and all that stuff. But it's always at the beginning of the game. And this time around, I felt as though it was definitely the second period because those teams did not want to lose the game in the second period because they thought as though they're not going to maybe win it in the second, but they could lose it if they commit stupid mistakes that the other team capitalizes on. And knowing the importance of the points is at this point in the season and the current state of standings, you don't want to jeopardize that and shoot yourself in the foot. And I feel as though both teams were acutely aware of that in the second period. So, but anyway, I'm digressing.
Well, no, but that's a big part of what Marty's talking about, right? Is that the Canadians have improved their game management. They've improved, like when Zach Bolduc, and we'll talk about him later in the show, but when Zach Bolduc scores to give the Canadians a lead, there's 15 minutes left in regulation time. And that Columbus team, I feel like that Columbus team is like a bigger, faster version of Carolina, kind of, in the sense that they're on you, they're in your face, they're pressuring you, but they're also big and they're fast. And I would love to see a Columbus Carolina second round series. That would be fantastic. So, but they pose a similar challenge. They don't shoot from everywhere the way Carolina does. They don't just pepper the net with shots. They have more of a shot quality bent to them. But in terms of how they play without the puck, in terms of how they pressure you once they lose it, it's very similar. Like you don't have time to make decisions. You don't have time to mess around with the puck. And the Canadians, I think, learned a lesson. Well, they didn't learn a lesson in the first period. They were coughing pucks up left, right, and center, and they weren't able to take advantage of that pressure. The basic principle of playing against a team that's hyper aggressive without the puck is if you can get it past that, then on the other side of it, there's all sorts of space, right? So if you can find a way to just bypass that first layer of pressure, you should wind up with an odd man situation on the other side. It's very similar to in football why a defense doesn't blitz all the time. Like if you just sent the blitz every time, teams will burn you. They'll get into that. They'll throw a little screen pass, or they'll throw something past that pressure, and then all of a sudden their secondary, there's not a whole lot of guys in the secondary. So the same principle applies in hockey when a heavy forechecking team like the Canadiens like to get on the forecheck, but they're not always hyper aggressive with it. They're more calculated. Sometimes they'll purposefully be second on the puck because they're trying to kind of guide a team into sort of a trap situation that they're trying to create. Like it's not the same thing. Whereas Columbus and Carolina, both of them without the puck, as soon as you have it on your stick, you better know what you're doing with it, because if you take half a second to decide what you're going to do with it, you're losing that puck. Like there's someone that's going to be there. It happened countless times against Carolina, and over the first period, it happened countless times against Columbus, even the first half of that game, I would say. So I think what Marty's saying is that they withstood that. Despite that, they stayed in those games because they as he said, they didn't hurt themselves too badly. But once they got that lead in the third with 15 minutes left, like this was their kryptonite for a big part of the season, right? Can we get a 1-goal lead with that much time left to the finish line? And there was one instance in the third period, Juraj Slafkovsky had the puck in the neutral zone. He tried to make a play with it, suddenly was surrounded, as I just mentioned, and lost the puck. And thankfully for him, Columbus didn't take that puck and just head back into the Canadian zone. They also ran into, I forget who the defenseman was, but they ran into the Canadiens defenseman. The puck wound up being loose, and Slafkovsky wound up with it on his stick again and clicked and dumped it softly into the offensive zone and went for a change. Okay, so it was just like a microcosm of the learning process that the Canadiens are going through. And really what stood out about that game is the 15 minutes between Zach Bolduc scoring and the final buzzer going, or the final horn going.
I think the reason why the team is happy with their current play and why the coach is happy is because now those tight games, those low scoring games, they're finally comfortable with them because of their game management, because they're not constantly worried about being scored on. I think that there's a level of comfort in playing a type of defensive hockey where if you're ahead, you can protect that lead and be in a situation where you might bend but you won't break. So they might not have the upper hand in terms of dangerous chances against something like that. The ratio
13
of
to 2 Columbus last night at 5-on-5. I don't buy
that was not pretty, but I doubt that
I don't
it was
buy that number.
The real number.
It's a weird number. No.
Yeah. But still, I mean,
they weren't ahead for sure.
No, they were not. But I feel as though it's more like we're absorbing the other team's offense. We're keeping it at bay, and we'll find our way. We'll find our opportunities, even though they might be fewer and far in between. As long as we rope-a-dope the other team a little bit, I feel as though this was not part of their identity so far this season, but they're going through a period where they say, okay, we're not going to win every game by scoring 5 or 6 goals. We need to win those low-scoring games, and they gone to the other extreme where they're like, okay, bring it on and we'll defend. Some of it is self-inflicted, that offense from the other team, because of all the turnovers that they suffered in the first period against Carolina, against Columbus. But for the most part, I feel as though the defensive game, they feel more comfortable playing it because they're not constantly on their heels and constantly wondering, oh my God, when's the next goal coming? They seem to be more at peace with it. There's less stress.
Okay, so let's talk about that, because Marty talking all this stuff, Best version of ourselves. It's hard. So this really dates back to the game against Boston, right? They've played 5 games
Yeah.
since that game. They've played Boston, they played Detroit, um, they played. Why is my brain blanking right now? Boston, Detroit, the Islanders, Hurricanes, Blue Jackets, right? So,
Yeah.
The common element in there is that Jakub Dobeš played 4 of those games and has been outstanding. Consistently outstanding. Like he is. You talk about confidence to not allow goals. Yes, the defensive game has something to do with it, but I think the guy in nets might have more to do with it. And that there's sort of there's a domino effect there. Like when you see that the guy behind you is going to make the saves, you have less of a tendency to go out of position to make a desperation defensive play. Like you have a tendency to trust your goaltender to do his job, which allows you to go do your job. And you're not stretching yourself thin trying to desperately do something because you feel like the next shot could enter your net. The Canadiens definitely are not in that place. Jakub Dobeš right now, in terms of goals saved above expected per 60 in the NHL this season, minimum 25 games played, he's 12th in the league. Two back of his opponent last night, Jack Greaves. But
he was far lower at some point at an earlier point in the season.
Oh yeah. Like he's on a run. He's on a run right now. He's basically been the best goalie in the NHL in March. So this goes a long way. This is a big equalizer. So I'm just wondering how much of Marty's sense that they're the best version of themselves right now has to do with the fact that they've been missing this element for most of the season and they've been winning despite missing that. Yeah. Now you add that element and everything falls into place as a result. I think the other big difference since that Boston game is obviously the D pairings. That's the night they changed them. That's the night Hudson went with Struble. That's the night Goulet went with Carrier. It has not changed since. They're not juggling nearly as much in game, aside from Hudson and Dobson getting a few ozone starts together. They're basically staying with the pairings as is. Struble gets rewarded with a goal, obviously, against Columbus, but Marty's been very happy with the way he's playing. I don't really see a path to Arbor Xhekaj getting into the lineup anytime soon, the way things are going right now. And that's a change. That's another element of the Boston game. That's one thing that was always in a state of flux. Who's going to play with who? How are we going to manage it during the game? How are the pairings going to change? This management of the blue line has been heavily lightened under the current configuration. But the Dobeš element to me is the most interesting because I've wondered all season, like, what could this team be with league average goaltending, right? Or slightly above, but not like this. Like this is elite goaltending, and now, he's played 4 out of 5 games. He's getting the type of workload that we've always assumed he can't handle, right? This has been the one.
Well, he's a rookie. I mean, the previous time earlier in the season in late November when he was asked to take a bigger chunk of the workload, he was not ready for it. But second time around, he's got, a second chance at this, and he seems a lot more prepared for it.
Yeah. I mean, he is what? It's been like 7 out of 10 games that he started, 8 out of 11, if I'm not mistaken. Anyhow, since the trade deadline, he's missed 3 games. He's sat for 3 games in that span. So
in March,
he's dispelling
in March, he played in 8 games and has got a save percentage of .913. It's very good. It's above league average. Not quite the best goalie in the NHL. I think that if you had to pick a goalie for the month of March, it would probably be Joel Offer in St. Louis, who in 8 games got a .959 save percentage. Hasn't lost. He's .602 actually during that span since March 1st. But yeah, I mean, Dobeš has acted as an equalizer. And you remember last year, the big stretch after Four Nations, after the trade deadline, obviously we made a big deal of how Nick Suzuki went on that crazy run. But on more than one occasion, we reminded people that Samuel Montembeault had also a big say in the Canadiens' play overall, and he was a major part of that run. And I feel as though right now Dobeš is a little bit like the way Samuel Montembeault was last year.
Yeah, absolutely. And so he's the biggest story on this team. You know, I mean, he's provided the two positions that were, I wouldn't say weakness, but the two positions that were in a state of flux, of confusion, of non-stability have been stabilized since the Boston game. Goaltending and defense. Like, you know, Jacob Fowler's going to play this weekend. I don't know which game he's going to play. I would imagine he's going to play in Nashville on Saturday, I would guess. I don't know that for a fact, but that would be what I would do. But regardless, he's going to play one of them. And no matter what he does, like, honestly, if he puts up a 30 save shutout and they beat Nashville, like, and Dobeš gets shelled by Carolina, like, I think it's going to take a little bit more than that for Dobeš to get unseated at this point. Like, he has earned himself a lot of benefit of the doubt at this point.
Yeah.
And so he is quite clearly the number one goaltender of the Montreal Canadiens. And arguably the biggest reason why Marty feels the way he does. Now, I have some numbers to share.
Okay.
Let's just prepare yourself. And if numbers make your eyes gloss over, then I apologize. But so looking at their last 5 games, okay? The Canadiens are 4-1, which is good. They've done that against some pretty good opponents.
Yes.
But they've managed to outscore opponents at 5-on-5 12-6. Good number, right?
Offensively, that's excellent. 6 goals, 5-on-5, 6 goals against. Yeah. It's very good.
So their expected goal number over these 5 games at 5-on-5 is 53%. But from a counting standpoint, they have earned 13.6 expected goals at 5-on-5. They've scored 12, slightly under that. So those 12 goals scored have been earned, basically.
Yeah.
Over that time, they've allowed 12.07 expected goals against and allowed 6. So they've given up, for every goal they've allowed at 5-on-5, they've given up 2 expected goals. That's goaltending, by and large. You know, that could be attributed to goaltending, but it's not that simple. Like, the Canadiens have outchanced their opponents 57-50 at 5-on-5 over these 5 games. But the goaltending is clicking at a 947 clip, which is 4 games by Dobeš, 1 game by Fowler. That's 947 save percentage at 5-on-5. So that is noteworthy. Now, how different are those numbers from the 5 previous games? I told you there was going to be numbers. And so save percentage for the Canadiens over the 5 previous games was .893. So compare that to 947 or whatever it is I said. They had been outchanced, however.
That's league average.
Yeah, that's league average.
Yeah.
They had been outchanced 63-52 in terms of high danger chances over those 5 games. They were negative in the expected goal ratio. They were at about 48%, 13-4, 14 against, roughly. And goals for and goals against were 12-12 over the previous 5 games. So the same 12 goals scored, but 6 more goals allowed. But from a expected goal standpoint, they only allowed 2 more expected goals in those 5 games as they did in the last 5 games, and roughly generated more or less the same number of expected goals for. So I think that they've improved for sure. They're playing better, but Dobeš has a lot to do with how everyone's feeling about how the Canadiens are playing, including the head coach. And that's not to say, like, you shouldn't discount goaltending. It's part of your team. It's probably the most important part of your team. But just to kind of put a point on the extent to which Jakub Dobeš is making this team feel good about itself, it's quite considerable in my view. It's a big part of it.
Yeah. No, that's totally fair. And earlier when we were saying, well, the Canadiens need saves, there needed to be like adjustments or a newfound consistency to their defensive play in order to help the goalies make the saves that the Canadiens needed. Now, I mean, there's been a bit of both, but it's mainly that they're getting the saves that they did not get earlier in the season, and that makes a world of difference.
Almost the whole season.
Yeah. And what I like about Dobeš right now, because you can still see that he's fighting rebounds. He gives a lot of rebounds, but he's beating passes, and he's ahead. He anticipates the play very well. He tracks the puck well, and he's there when the shot arrives. He's already there, and I think that's a big difference. His lateral movements are not all over the place as much as they were before. Still gives like the odd opportunity where you think, oh, he got lucky there, but for the most part, I find as though there's he seems to be ready for the volume that he's facing, and yeah, he's beating the passes, and that's great. The other night, man, against Carolina, if Montembeault had been in net, it would not have been.
Oh my
pretty.
God. All those long distance shots from weird angles. Are you kidding me? That would not have been good. No, but I think even Fowler, like, I mean, honestly, like, it's that performance on Tuesday, 41 saves. You can say that, not a lot of those shots are high danger shots, right? Yeah. And that's true. But as a goaltender, like Marty mentioned it after a game, like you look at their shot attempts, like every time, the reason why Corsi was invented, right? It's named after Jim Corsi, who was a goaltending coach for the Buffalo Sabres. He came up with this notion of counting shot attempts, not as a way to measure possession, not as a way to measure offense. It was a way to measure the workload on his goaltenders. That was the original intention of tracking Corsi, was as a goaltending workload measurement. And so when you face a team like Carolina and they're launching shots from everywhere like that, you have to be aware that those shots are coming, whether they get to you or not, whether they miss the net, whether they're blocked. Every time a shot is taken, a goalie reacts. And so if a team puts up like 80 shot attempts, I don't know what Carolina had, but let's say like a big number would be 80, let's say in a game. That's 80 actions that the goalie has to do over 60 minutes. It's a lot. And so for him to put up the 41 save performance that he did, for him to allow the Canadiens to survive that, even though they were down 2-0 in the first period, to survive that first period and get a goal from Kapanen at the end of the first, largely on Dobeš's back, and to be able to switch the momentum as drastically as they did in the second period and definitely in the third, that was a goalie win to me. Like, yes, the big line scored. Yes, Demidov has an amazing breakaway. Yes, there was a lot of storylines that night, but none of it happens without Jakub Dobeš in the first period, allowing them to survive a slow first period. And then he does the exact same thing against Columbus in a very different way, but still, as I mentioned, 8 shots on goal, 8-1 at first TV timeout. Like, this is a pattern that the Canadiens don't want to repeat. And I think that's why Martin was a little less enthusiastic about the game after the win against Columbus, recognizing that there are things that his team could have done better, but also recognizing that, they were in a position to win the game, and they did. And they managed to, they did all the things necessary to get that win, to get that. So, but the number one factor to me in both wins this week has been Jakub Dobeš. And in a grander scheme of things over the last 5 games, I think a lot of the analytical stuff that suggests that the Canadiens are playing a better brand of hockey, I think the root of it is how solidified their goaltending is Dobeš, basically.
Yeah. But Marty is adamant about it and saying that, we're at a point in the season where they're not going to teach new stuff, and it's all about applying consistently what's already been taught. Stamina.
Stamina.
And And I went back to read articles that I wrote back in November when the Canadiens were struggling between the pipes, and people were talking about the defensive structure, second guessing. Are we again in the position where we'll have to wonder about the hybrid system or the man-to-man, and et cetera, et cetera. But I remember Nick Suzuki back then said, if after the games, all the games we've played this season, players are still unsure of what they're meant to do on the ice, this in itself is a bigger problem than the mental mistakes we've been seeing. So it's not about the players not knowing the system. It's all about keeping your mental awareness at a high level, at a high enough level consistently, so that you're going to prevent yourself from stopping to apply that structure that you should know by heart. I remember around those same days, Marty was saying, the players know that system so well, they could teach it themselves. So if that was true in November, that's even more true now. So when Marty says the time for teaching is done, well, you bet it is. There's 11 games left in the season. So, they've all the teaching is done, and now they're doing their exams. It's like no more studying. It's exam every other night. Those are the tests.
A perfect example of that is the Canadiens. Rick Bowness was a bit late to pull his goalie. I don't know why he took as long as he did, but he did take some time. They managed to survive another 5-on-6 situation, right? And this was a big issue. They've still given up the most goals in the league with the opposing goalie pulled. But recently, over this 5-game sample, actually, it's a 5-game sample. Maybe I might be wrong, but it's recently they've only allowed, I think it was 2 goals in their last 10 games or something like that. They've improved vastly. So after the game, I asked Jake Evans, I was like, to what extent do you feel is there any added calm in that situation? Have you guys found a place where you feel a certain level of confidence even with the opposing goalie pulled? And he wouldn't quite go that far to say that, well, we feel super confident we can get out of it, but because it's what he did say, well, they probably should have scored tonight. Like that Brian Marchment, that Mason Marchment, not Brian. Oh,
yeah,
that's a bad slip up. I'm sorry, but Mason Marchment missing that net. That was the one Dobeš mistake. Let's say the one puck that squeaked through him. Marchment had an open side on the net and didn't put it in, but still, the Canadiens ultimately got to the finish line. Marchment didn't score that goal. They've looked more organized, and Evans was like, sometimes you look up and it feels like there's 20 guys on the ice. Like, I think there is still a certain level of, they're still a bit intimidated by that situation. They're not 100% comfortable and 100% confident, but they're definitely in a way better place now than they were like 3 weeks ago when this was a thing, when we were talking about this every day, when we saw it being practiced on the ice all the time. And the one thing Evans said is the one thing I can say for sure that everyone knows what we're supposed to do. Everyone knows. We've talked about it a lot.
Yeah.
Everyone knows their roles. And I saw recently, like there was a little bit of a weird thing on like talk radio and like social media. Like, why doesn't Cole Caulfield get out there at 6-on-5? Why don't we get him some freebie empty net goals? And I'm just like, were you not paying attention like a month ago when this was like when we were talking about this? And it's not as if like Cole Caulfield would be some sort of defensive disaster and would cost you games or whatever, but he's not part of that unit. And that unit has been working. This has been a serious area of weakness and a very emphasized point of attention for this team, where at this point in the season, when you're in the middle of a playoff race, you have a player who's going to get 50 goals. You're up 2 goals. I think the big thing was the Carolina game when you were up 2 and they pulled the goalie. Why did you put Cole Caulfield out there? Well, when you're approaching the playoffs and you have a 6-on-5 opportunity, you're going to take every opportunity to get the guys who are going to be out there for 6-on-5 when the games matter in the playoffs to go out there and get some reps, especially against a team like Carolina that's going to launch shots from everywhere and is a super challenging team to face. You're going to take the 5 guys or the rotation of 8 or 9 guys that are going to play in that situation, and you're going to let them hone that situation because it's been a problem. They were the worst 5-on-6 team in the league. They remain the worst 5-on-6 team in the league. They have given up the most goals still to this day with the opposing goalie pulled. Why on earth would you not take the opportunity to refine that area of the game instead of sending a guy out there and saying, go out and get your 44th or whatever, like let's help you get to 50. That's not the priority. And to say that it should be the priority is asinine. Like it's just a total. And
did somebody say it was a priority?
No one said it was a priority, but people are wondering. Okay. I heard it talked about. Why isn't Cole Caulfield out there when you're up 2 goals and the opposing net's empty? Let's get him some goals. Let's get him to 50. Which, fine. You know, like if you're, I don't know, if you have a playoff spot locked, if your slot in the playoffs is guaranteed and you're at the end of the season and Caulfield has 48 goals and there's 2 games left and you're up 2 and it doesn't really matter, maybe. But at this point in the season, when you could still theoretically miss the playoffs and you're still trying to refine this part of your game, it's the person who would disagree with this whole argument the most, I can guarantee you, is Cole Caulfield.
Yeah. And it's not just about getting reps for the playoffs. It's also that even if you're up by 2 and there's 4 minutes left, there's still ample time for that team who's going 6-on-5 to score 2 goals. It's not in the bag. So you better make sure that you're going to get out of there with the win, with a regulation win, and you just don't mess it up. So go with your best guys and protect your lead. So no, totally. I mean, there might be eventually a time for this, but it's not now.
But it's indicative.
Otherwise, it would be
indicative. I mean, the whole thing about Caulfield was a bit of an aside, and I apologize. But the real point is that they're still refining this part of the game, and it speaks to what Marty said, where the teaching is over. Mm-hmm. Now it's a matter of executing and applying it. Like the teaching's done. Everyone on the 5-on-6 unit knows what they have to do. They know the cues of when to pressure, when not to pressure. And yes, there was a bit of a blip against Columbus, but that's not a system thing. Like that's just a puck squirts through your goalie and winds up in the crease behind him. Like there's nothing system-wise you can do to prevent that. Like system-wise, you know, they're doing better in that phase of the game. And I think that's just an example, an overarching example of some of the things that the Canadiens have addressed in their game. Rush defense has been better of late, which was a bit of a disaster. Like their arrivals into the defensive zone in transition. Like there's a lot of things that are improving, these little things that were costing them goals. And I think the improvement in those areas stems from the goaltending in the sense that when you get a big save, like, you know, how many breakaways did the Hurricanes have the other night? 3?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You know, like, and they didn't get a goal, you know, so those are transition breakdowns, right? Like those are defensive breakdowns. When you give up you give up a breakaway, that is a breakdown. And so it's not like they're never happening, but when you get the key saves, when you need them, it provides you with some confidence to just keep building on what you're doing and not be in a, you know, 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of situation.
Okay, there's another thing about Dobeš that I want to address, and it's the whole media kerfuffle from this week. I don't know to which extent it's something that the fan base is really interested in. I don't know.
I don't know either.
Let us know. Well, maybe it's just an industry thing.
I'm sure people would like to hear from him. I'm sure that especially this is like it's the best moment of his career. You know, like this is
that game against Carolina. It was probably one of his best performances since he joined the best performance
of his career. Yeah, it was his best game in a playoff race. So the timing of it is unfortunate. You know, the Canadiens are trying to. So what's going on here? There's no huge conspiracy. It's not like a huge thing. It really, my sense of it is that everyone involved, including Dobeš, maybe even some of his teammates, but definitely the Canadiens communication staff, the front office, there's all sorts of people. Dobeš has had 4, 5, 6 instances this season where he's had an interaction with the media. I represent one of them, where he's had an interaction with the media, said something he probably shouldn't have said, and regretted afterwards. And then it caused a degree of stress that he just didn't need. And so I think not only him, but I think several people came to the conclusion that maybe it would be best for you to just not talk to the media for a while. And maybe that can let you lock in better and just take this source of stress off your plate,
Yeah, because he's gotten to a situation where he's a bit right now. He's a bit afraid that next time I say something, will I say too much or end up faltering and say stuff that I'm going to regret, and then my teammates are going to be angry at me, or management is going to be angry at me. I'm going to get all sorts of heat for stuff that was preventable. But a lot of it is just the fact that his own inner censorship device is his filter is not working well.
He doesn't have one. He needs to get one installed. He needs to call a filter person and install a filter. Yeah,
it's going to be it's probably that over the summer there's going to be it'll be addressed one way or another, but it's because this is part of being a professional hockey player. This dealing with the media is part of their daily routine, but it's part of being a rookie also, and learning about stuff like that. Most players are not as, I don't want to offend anybody, most players are not as interesting as he is. Fundamentally, he's a very candid and quirky guy. He's got a very, very interesting personality. He shows it. I'm all for it all day long. But it's a beast that needs to be tamed. And other rookies that arrive in the league, the meat and potatoes type of comments, figuring out where the line is so that you don't put yourself in trouble, you don't say too much, you don't put anybody under the bus, and so on and so on. They figure it out pretty easily. And a couple of, a few advice from their older teammates, and voila, it's done. For him, it takes more figuring out. So that's why, I don't know how long this is going to take. I think that the Canadiens want to bring him back.
It is indefinite.
Make him available to the media, ideally as shortly as possible. But it's not. Yeah, for now it's indefinite. But it would be awkward to come in a situation where he was the Montreal Canadiens' #1 goalie entering the playoffs, and we would not hear from him after a good performance in the playoffs. I
think the Canadiens are trying to figure out how to manage this. It's important to note that this is something that's been sort of bubbling under the surface for more or less all year. And it's funny, I think Dobeš is arriving and I hope this is not the case, but you will remember that 3 or 4 years into Carey Price's career, following the Hobbit and the Hole end of season media availability, where he just sort of, without a filter, answered a question about his reality off the ice in Montreal and how he doesn't go grocery shopping, how he tends to avoid public places. He doesn't like the scrutiny. He tends to stay home and says, basically, I'm a hobbit in a hole. That was the end of season final media avail. He was very engaging. He was very personable. He was very honest. He just answered all the questions as honestly as he could. That summer, that Hobbit in the Hole comment was talked about all summer, to the point where at the Canadiens golf tournament, 4 months later, 3 months later, 4 months later, Carey Price was asked about that comment. And he basically decided, and I talked to him about it long after that, but he basically decided at that moment, is that, okay, I do have to talk to the media. It's not realistic that I won't be able to talk to the media. I'm just going to be as boring as I possibly can. And he just made a conscious effort. He'd answered questions, but he did not give good sound bites. He did not give any color. He was not off the cuff the way he used to be. He just became a much more bland version of himself by design.
Yeah.
I just hope Jakub Dobeš does not get to that place, because even the non-bland version of Carey Price is kind of bland, right? It's not, you're not getting this super colorful. I mean, he can be like a super funny, engaging kind of guy, but
it's not bubbly like Dobeš. It's not the
it's
same.
not Dobeš. Yeah, it's not Dobeš. Yeah. So I hope he finds a way to maintain, because he's a super compelling personality, right? Like, I mean, that would help the team. Like, have a goalie like that. Like, it's just fun, you know? It's a little bit like Briz, personality wise, somewhat, kind of similar, you know, like just kind of might say anything at any time, and you're not really quite sure. So, but I think he's kind of dealing.
A Jakub Dobeš media avail is like a box of chocolate. You never know what you're going to get.
You never know what you're going to get. So I would imagine, listen, the Canadiens are now on the road for what? 1, 2, 3, 5 games. There are 5 games on the road. I would have to imagine at some point over this road trip, he's going to talk to the media. I can't imagine they're going to let this go on. And they probably would do the first one on the road. There'll be fewer reporters there and whatever. Yeah. So I think they realize, because, like, you know, from their perspective, it just so happened that the day they decided to institute this was the day that Jakub Dobeš had the best game of his career and was the first star, spoke to Mark Denis on the ice, was not available to us in the room afterwards. A lot of people were annoyed. Like, he was the story that night. And generally speaking, you know, fans might not care, and maybe we've already talked too much about this. Maybe most of our listeners don't care, but generally when you're reading a story about the game, you want to hear from the most important players in the game, like the players that had the biggest impact on the game. You want to hear what they have to say. And I would think, at least, and if not, then we've been doing it wrong for a very long time, right? So it's like, it's problematic when the number one goalie is on some sort of media blackout. Like, you just can't not provide the number one goaltender of your team to the media. It's just not a thing. And frankly, it used to be a no-brainer that the number one goalie talked, win or lose, every game, after the game, especially since the goalies don't talk the morning of the game. It was just a given that you would talk to the goalie after a game. And now, if the goalie has a bad game, he might be brought out, he might not. It's a very different environment. So now we've gone from that, where, oh, he had a tough night, we're going to give him a night off kind of thing. And you're like, no, that's not how it works. He's supposed to come out. Your defenseman had a tough night, he's in here, you know, like, why is the goalie have to not face it, you know? And it's, so I don't know. We'll see. But I think all of this was done with good intentions. Like, the intent of this was good. It was just poorly executed and poorly timed. That's all.
Yeah, and I think that the quotes, I mean, it's not about necessarily the quotes. That's where, you know, I don't know if fans are interested. Sometimes players will say stuff that fans will say, well, that's boring. But there's a lot of, if you ask the right questions, there's a lot of little nuggets to make you understand details of the game that were not necessarily perceived either on TV or, you know, in person at the Bell Center, in, you know, through the actions. The little nuts and bolts of the game, the little details, or the after the whistle stuff, or what's not in your screen when you watch the game, or interactions during TV timeouts, all sorts of stuff, or their perspective on things that happen can bring a lot of relevant stuff, just to not only to tell the game, but also it's a window into how the team operates, where they're at. I think that you can get a lot more than people assume from the TV clips. There's a lot more that you can get from players. So that's, in that sense, I would like to be able to talk to the new number one goalie of the Montreal Canadiens. But I think that for now, it's fine. You know, in the short term, it's okay. He's got to. It's not surprising when you understand that he just needs to to have this filter put on. Um,
Yeah.
this is something. It's a process that is quite understandable because there's been half a dozen situations, and you said that you've been in one of them. I mean, you told us a story on a podcast about the whole interaction about with the Czech national team. Months
Yeah.
before the
Yeah. Yeah.
Olympics, the fact that they had not reached out to him and they did not even have his phone number or something.
They didn't
Um,
respond to his emails, is what he said.
yeah. So nobody talked
So
about
that
it in Montreal, but it made there was an
it was
uproar in
dude.
Czechia.
Andre Pavlitz had to hold a press conference. Andre Pavlitz is the Czech national goaltending coach, the former goalie for the Atlanta Thrashers and then the Winnipeg Jets and a few other teams. He had to hold a press conference in Czechia to defend themselves. Basically accused me of lying, which is fine. He has to say what he has to say, but said that story was completely fabricated and that, yes, we've been in contact with Jakub Dobeš. This is ridiculous, blah, blah, blah. And I actually went to Dobeš that day and apologized because I'm going to be honest with you. I had a long conversation with him and I agreed not, I decided not to write it because I was like, this doesn't serve my purposes. It's not going to serve his purposes. It's not going to help him get to the Olympics. So I put it in the vault, that one bit of that conversation that I mentioned here caused that. And so it was but there's been, and when I went to apologize to him, like he was very uncomfortable. Like he accepted my apology, but I could tell that he did not like the situation that was caused. And while I played a part in it, I think he realized that the main person who played a part in it was him, who told me what he told me, so he knew that. And that's happened a few other times this season. And so, and when Dobeš says something and it causes like a bit of a thing, his teammates have to answer questions about it and this and that. And like, it's just like, it just creates a distraction where they're trying to not have one. And so, I mean, I personally wouldn't have made the call that you're not talking to the media anymore. I would have been like, okay, well, you're only going to talk after games where you play. Just keep it simple. Just get in and out. Do your thing. Answer the questions as simply as you can, as honestly as you can, but as simply as you can. Try not to say anything outlandish. And just because it's part of the gig. It's part of the job. It's not true that, part of the reason why these players make the money that they make is because of the enormous interest in the game outside of that dressing room. And the only reason we have jobs is because people want to consume the stuff that we're producing. And we produce the stuff based on the conversations that we can have with these players. Like that's how the whole ecosystem works. You can't just take arguably, like if I were to pick a player right now, if the playoffs started tomorrow and I said, I need a player that I want to feature to like kind of exemplify the potential for this team to do some damage in the playoffs, my feature would be on Jakub Dobeš. Like that's what I would pick. And so that's just reality. Like you're the starting goalie for the Montreal Canadiens. It's often been compared to starting quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys or ace pitcher for the New York Yankees. Like this is what you are. You can't put the starting goaltender for the Montreal Canadiens on some sort of media blackout. It's just not. It's unprecedented. I can't remember this ever happening. I've been doing this for 26 years. Do you ever remember the goalie, the number one goalie for the Montreal Canadiens, and us being told that he's just not going to talk to the media? No. There's been a lot of number one goalies who didn't like talking to the media, but they still did it. It's like
yeah. I mean, I haven't seen it in with the Canadiens at any position actually. When they're deemed healthy, there are some guys who will disappear for.
Do you remember Roman Hamrlik?
I spoke to Roman.
Stupid thing, yeah, but it took them weeks to make him available. It took them weeks. Yeah, they kept him away from us for a very long time after that whole Kostitsyn thing, whatever. That I spoke to him too, but it didn't. It took a long time. They assumed it would go away. They tried to make it so that it would just go away, and then he would talk. And then, sure enough, the first time he talked, his first 10 questions was about that. But it's fine. You just got to go through it, and then it was over.
Yeah.
The longer you extend it, see now, the result of this is that now when Dobeš does finally speak, it's going to be a way bigger thing than it needs to be.
Of course. Yeah.
And it's a total self-creation. Like it's you've just created this situation yourselves in trying to solve a problem that was like a legitimate problem. But the real solution to that problem was to just properly coach your player on how to do media, what not to say, what to say, how to conduct yourself. Like this is kind of what should have been the solution. But
they probably tried though. It's probably, I'm sure that they worked with him in some capacity at some throughout the season,
did.
you know.
But
it's not
the bare minimum is to make him available after games. That's
yeah. And I think that's how it's going to be.
But it's really not that big of a deal. It's not.
No, I know that. But let's just finish. Let's just wrap up this topic by saying that it's not a mental health thing, you know. It would be so widely overstated to go into that territory that it's not
a mental health thing. It's possible to say that a certain situation gives someone anxiety without it meaning that person suffers from anxiety, that person has a mental health issue. That's two different things. Exactly. And so there was a report, there was a column written that Dobeš is dealing with mental health issues. That is not the case. He is in fine mental health, and it's not to diminish. It's not to say like that's a bad thing, or that would be some sort of, you know, kind of stain on his reputation or whatever. But it's just not true. That's all. It's like it's if he was suffering from some mental health issues, I think this whole thing would be more understandable. Frankly, I mean, it would just be like, okay, yeah, fine. It's if this is part of his treatment, then okay. But it's quite clear that that's not the case.
No, overall, he's in a good spot, and we get to see it every other night right now.
Yes, that's it. Well, if he keeps getting named first star at the Bell Center, we'll get to quote him talking to Marc Denis or Renaud Lavoie in his first star speech. So
speaking of first stars,
we'll have to pay extra attention.
Yeah,
during the first
speaking of first stars,
and record it.
Yeah, that's true. On Thursday night, first star of the game was Zachary Bolduc. First goal in 31 or 32 games? 31 games.
32 games. He went 31 games without a goal.
A goal.
It's a semantic thing, but yeah. Ended a 31-game goal streak is what I would say.
For a little while there, Marty had been saying that it was coming, that he was playing better, and it was a matter of time before Bolduc would score. I thought it was great that he was in a situation where he had the puck, center slot earlier in the game, and a kid who's mired in such a slump and has got an opportunity maybe to finish that slump and score a goal. This recognized that the better play was not to try to score into a dubious angle or a type of traffic that maybe was not conducive to score a goal. And he recognized that he had Jaden Struble on his left that was wide open and chose to pass to Struble. And the rest of his game seemed like it was really, by that point, a matter of time that he would score a goal. So there was that. And the other thing is, not only has he been playing very well with Jake Evans for the last few games, and there's finally some real chemistry developing between him and the Montreal Canadiens centerman, but yesterday there was also Josh Anderson on that line. And Anderson brings more and more as the season goes on and we get closer to the playoffs. He brings his physicality more consistently, and having Anderson on Bolduc's line, it gives Bolduc really an example, shift after shift, of getting involved physically. And I think that you could tell that Bolduc got himself more involved physically too. And when he is, the other parts of his game benefit from it because he gets overall more into the game because of the physical aspect. So I think that it was an interesting side benefit to have Anderson on that line last night. And overall, I'm really happy for the kid. Great shot on the on the scoring on the winning goal. So I'm
Mhm.
very very happy for Budzik.
Yeah, and so I'll share a conversation I had last night. I was talking to one of the many pro scouts who attend Canadians games regularly, and I was just kind of curious. I just wanted to see, like, if you had like one wart or one like nitpick on the Canadians heading into the playoffs, like what is one thing that you would point out as an issue that you would tell your team about, let's say. And he had an interesting kind of answer. He's like, well, there's definitely some holes on this team, but the one overarching thing that I wonder is like, how much more can they get? The game elevates in the playoffs. Who are they going to get more from? Are they getting more from
Mm-hmm.
Hudson than they're already getting? Are they getting more from Suzuki than they're already getting? Are they going to get more from Caulfield? Are they going to get more from Slav? Like, these guys are pretty much topped out. Like, this, if they can maintain what they're giving, great, but who's going to elevate? Who's going to make your team better when the game elevates in the playoffs? And I looked down. This was like first intermission or something. I looked down and I was looking down on the ice and I was like, well, there's 76 over there who hasn't scored in 31 games. Like, he could probably give them more. And, Demidov, Kapanen, like, these are all the young players on the team, right?
Oof,
All the players
Kapanen,
who,
yeah.
I mean, these are, but that's when what that scout was talking about. That's the source of that is which one of these guys can get through this. And in Demidov's case, it's been difficult. He had obviously a great goal against Carolina, but generally, and he's admitted this publicly, is that the grind of the schedule is wearing on him, right? It's really been difficult for him to manage. Kapanen, I had a long conversation with him before the game against Columbus. Same kind of thing. He's never played this many games, or he's verging on. I think he played 70. He played something like 73 games. Anyhow, he's verging on a full season's worth of work in Sweden already, and the playoffs haven't even started yet. So, can they get more from Newhook? Sure. But the one guy that really took off at this time of year last year was Bolduc, right?
Yeah.
He's the guy. A year ago, they go to the Four Nations break. The Blues send him to the AHL. He plays 2 or 3 games in the AHL. Didn't spend the whole break there, but the Blues wanted him to keep playing. His game was not in a bad place, but it wasn't in the best place. And he comes back from Four Nations and goes on a total heater. He's like the leading rookie scorer in the NHL between the end of Four Nations and the end of the season. Becomes a power play weapon, finishes tied for first on the team in power play goals. Like, everything happened from Four Nations on. And when they came back from the Olympics, I was wondering, okay, is this going to happen again? Like, are they going to get this out of Bolduc? And while it hasn't happened from a production standpoint, it definitely has happened from just his ability to, yes, the ability to process the game in this environment with these teammates and under this coach is starting to click a little bit. And, he laid a big hit on the forecheck in the first period last night. And I was like, okay, that's a good sign. Like, that's, if you start getting that into your game a little bit more, because, we always talk about the young players on this team learning from their playoff experience how physical it was against Washington. Well, Bolduc had a pretty similar experience. Like, that series against the Jets last year, that first round series, St. Louis, Winnipeg, that was a crazy series. You remember that?
Yeah.
Like, it was just back and forth and comebacks, and Hellebuck is terrible here, and then he's great, and then it's just like, it was nuts. It was a nuts series. But Bolduc himself was not a big factor in that series, right? After like a great end to the regular season, he was not a big factor in the playoffs. And so you would hope, like, the Canadiens, I think the scout's not wrong. Like, they're going to need someone to elevate. Josh Anderson, probably going to elevate, right? In all likelihood.
The bigger guys, I think that Gouli will elevate, Anderson will elevate. If Doc comes back, I'm curious to see how Doc will fare in the playoffs. And Bolduc is not one of those bigger guys, but if I had to name a fourth one, it'd be Bolduc.
It'd be Bolduc, because one area of concern last night, that seemed like the type of game where Phil Danault would be able to put a stamp on that type of game, like a tight, low scoring, and he had probably his worst game since the trade. If not, it's close to it. He did not play a whole lot. The best player on that line was Joe Veleno, and it was not particularly close. That's like Jake Evans and Zach Bolduc, whoever's playing next to them, whether it's Texier, whether it's Anderson, that right now is the second best line on the Canadiens.
Yeah, it is. Because, my God, the Kapanen line got caved last night.
Yes.
It was crazy.
Not good. And he's fighting it, and so it's like
well, as a line they are. I mean, I don't want to it's named the Kapanen line because he's the centerman.
Yeah, it's not only on him, but
it's not
it's not just him. But definitely I think this is an opportunity for Bolduc, and he's built up towards this goal. It's just one goal, but his play over the last 2 weeks, let's say, has led to this. And when your coach comes out and says he's going to get one, he's all right around it. He's doing all the right things. Like, Marty doesn't just throw stuff out like that, like willy-nilly, like he doesn't just say stuff like that for nothing. And I think earlier this season, for long stretches of the season, Marty would have never said something like that about Zach Bolduc, because Bolduc looked lost, and he doesn't look lost anymore. And so even if he doesn't become a scorer, he can be a contributor playing the way he's playing. And the Canadiens are going to need guys outside that top line.
Yeah.
To contribute, and that was like last night. I wrote about it last night, but that was Nick Suzuki's 17th game without a point this season out of 71. 17. That line has played 33 games together. That was, I think, the 6th time that all 3 of them didn't get a point. So they get pretty consistent production out of that group, right? But when they don't, and when they face, depending on who they face, but if they face a team that has 3 or 4 days to game plan for them, that has maybe a particular matchup difficulty for them, that gives that line trouble, what's their plan B? What are they going to do after?
You need to have. That's why it's far from a finished product, and we've been talking ad nauseum about the window opening. Is it open yet, or whatever? This is still a very imperfect team, and I think that the fact that you don't necessarily have a second line that you can really rely on as much, saying, okay, well, Suzuki tonight is matched up so tightly, they're not able to do much, but at least we got this other line. I think that eventually Demidov will provide that, because he's just so good. But will it be with the current line mates that he's able to provide that? I'm not too sure about it. But you're right. I mean, second line, third line, fourth line, they can all chip in to bring some secondary scoring. If you have a guy like Bolduc, who down the stretch could finally turn into points the good work that he has put in the last few weeks, that'd be a great difference maker, because this is a guy who has a lot of interesting tools. He's second year in the NHLer, but I think that he's going to put those tools together at some point, and if we get to see like the true version and the accomplished version of Zachary Bolduc only 3 years down the road, so be it. But for now, you can already see that there's, at the very least, like a decent top 9 forward for this team. It is true today, and I think it's only going to get better. It's just that the expectations early on in the year might have been a bit too high for him, just based on the short sample of late last season in St. Louis. The expectation that he might carry this over this year and play like that from this point on was probably absurd. But at least, though, he might never go through a 31 goal drought, 31 game drought, the way that he has faced this year, so it's an experience. It's something that he's gone through, and who knows, we'll see, but he might come out of it with having a better understanding of what needs to be done and come out of it as a better player.
Just as an unrelated aside, by the time you listen to this, Michael Hage will have started his NCAA tournament experience with Michigan. I don't know why that came to mind, but just saying.
Okay.
First round of the NCAA tournament for Michigan. Well, I just feel like, if you need a boost of something, some offensive juice outside of the top line, there might be a source of it. That's all.
It might. It might. Yeah. Do you think? Okay, what are the odds that we see and and Demidov on the same line before
Or the end of the
the end of
season.
May? Either in the
Before the end
last
of
few
May,
games of the year, or at some point, in the playoffs or whatever, or do you
I
think
think.
that they're going to be paired together at some point?
Well, I can't even say with any degree of assurance that he's going to play in Montreal, but by the end
I
of
know.
May, I think so.
Yeah.
I think we'll see it.
Okay.
I think we'll see it only because the status quo is not something that's working, and it's been a while that it hasn't been working. So the NCAA championship game is April 11th. Canadiens' final game of the season is what, April 14th.
I think so.
They have two games remaining after April 11th. So even if Michigan were to go to the final, you have a game on Long Island on the 12th, which would be a quick turnaround, and then you have a game in Philly to close the regular season on the 14th.
Yeah. Past experience is that even if he was playing on that championship game, whatever the outcome, he would not turn around and say, "I'm turning pro and I'm playing for the Montreal Canadiens" the day after. That's not happening.
No, but that last regular season game, especially if the Canadiens don't really have a whole lot to play for at that point. I mean, if they're locked into a playoff seeding, if they're locked into a playoff opponent, if they're locked into either home ice or not having home ice, and obviously if they're locked into a playoff spot, then that would be an opportunity to get Hage game, see what he can do, and then you consider it. But again, based on past experience, like Demidov comes over from Russia, was in a game ASAP. Kapanen comes over from Sweden, was playing pretty quickly after that. Like this organization has not hesitated to put some of their top young players into the lineup, and especially when it's not removing a player that's helping them win, And so at this point, if secondary scoring remains an issue until that point, Hage is an option. Hage is there and is probably the number one option that they have. He's higher on the he's probably a better option than any forward that they have in Laval right now.
Because what's intriguing to me with Michael Hage is that when you look at the Canadiens' depth chart, they have tons of depth. It's very enticing. Although they face an opponent, Columbus has amazing depth too. I mean, they scratched Voronkov and Ken Johnson for crying out loud. So so this is a beautifully deep lineup. But so the Canadiens got depth, so there's no problem there. But true top six caliber.
No, they have no depth.
How many do they have apart from their top line and Demidov? True top six guys.
Four. They have four guys.
The other ones can chip in.
You just named them.
Yeah.
But that's
other
why
ones can chip in at some point, but
this is why the debate is there to put Slav back on that second line. Like when you have four legitimate top six guys, you can form two top six lines with two guys that maybe are not legitimate top six guys, but as long as they're surrounded by two other people who are legitimate top six guys, you can get by, So if you do put, I mean, Texier's day to day with this lower body injury, whatever, we'll see. But if you do put Texier, or you put Doc when he comes back with Suzuki and Caulfield, and you can get Slavkovsky with either Newhook or Kapanen and Demidov, I think you're in an interesting spot. But the way that Slavkovsky and Suzuki and Caulfield have been playing together, aside from the last game, the way they've been producing, it would be borderline insane to break them up. Like it would just be crazy. Like that would just
they're so good.
It's a quandary. It's a quandary.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a bit of a dilemma, and I think it's something that bears watching over this road trip for sure.
Yeah. All right, buddy. Let's wrap this up. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening to the Basu and Godin Notebook. We'll be back, obviously, on Monday. I did not post the answers to the quiz that we did back at Hurley's. You know, it's almost what,
In the chat,
2 weeks ago.
you
Yeah,
didn't
I
post
posted the
answers.
questions. I posted just the questions, never the answers. So
what are you doing? Yeah, okay.
I forgot about it. I
Okay.
just forgot about it. So
All right.
I'm going to do that, so at least people can take a look. All right. Well, enjoy your weekend, man, and we'll talk again on Monday.
I'll talk to you just before leaving for Tampa. So enjoy your weekend, everyone, and we'll talk.